Welcome back, dear traders. The US stock market opened on a positive note, as expected. The benchmark stock indexes closed with the confident gains on Tuesday. The Dow Jones looked modest intraday gains yesterday, having climbed by 254 points or 0.76%. The Nasdaq again showed the strongest growth, having closed 2.01% up, and the S&P 500 rose 47 points or 1.19% to close at 4,019 points. The New York pre-market was less promising. The major indexes traded mainly lower. The S&P 500 is expected to trade in the intraday corridor between 3,970 and 4,060 points. Wall Street closed with sharp gains yesterday amid a rally in high-tech stocks, in particular the shares of semiconductor companies. The sector used to be wind down for a long time and finally recovered. Philadelphia's semiconductor index jumped by 5%, the sharpest intraday growth since November 30 after Barclays upgraded the sector's rating. Tesla shares spiked by 7.7% after CEO Elon Musk testified in a federal civil trial about the fraud cause related to the tweet saying that he advocates for taking the e-car company private. The shares of Salesforce, the cloud software developer, rose by 3.1% after the news that Elite Management Corporation purchased a stake worth billions of dollars. Spotify joined the list of companies that announced massive layoffs. The company aims to fire 6% of its employees for obvious reasons: a looming recession and the high interest rates. The shares of the music streaming company grew by 2.1%. Almost all of 11 sectors in the S&P 500 gained ground, except the energy sector. The high-tech shares logged the biggest gains, having climbed by 2.3% intraday. Today, the market is taking a breather ahead of more corporate reports and the series of macroeconomic data that will be on tap on Thursday and Friday. The market is anticipating the US GDP data and a personal spending survey. Today, investors are digesting indicators of a business activity. The EU manufacturing and services PMIs for January resumed growth for the first time since June. The US PMIs will be released tonight. As for corporate reports, 57 companies included in the S&P 500 have already unveiled their financial records. According to Refinitiv, 63% of them reported higher than expected profits. Now, analysts predict that the aggregate profits of the S&P companies will decline by 3% in the fourth quarter on year, almost twice worse than a 1.6% annual fall in the first quarter. Microsoft will present its report later today. Investors will focus on spending and the job cuts in the high-tech sector. Analysts say that demand for cloud technologies was boosted by teleworking and distant learning during the pandemic. Recently, demand has been declining in the last 9 months, which means a fall in sales. Microsoft shares rose on a Monday after the company announced multi-billion-dollar investments in the artificial intelligence lab OpenAI, reinforcing connections with the sensational chatbot ChatGPT. The oil service company Halliburton reported stronger than expected profits for the fourth quarter. The report proves that the oil rally encourages drilling activity and boosted demand for drilling services and machinery. Johnson & Johnson posted an optimistic forecast of an annual profit beyond Wall Street forecasts. The company expects high demand for medicines, in particular the drug against cancer. Besides, investors look to reports by US defense companies such as Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, which are expected to show upbeat results. The US dollar index regained its footing and climbed above 102 points. At the same time, the overall sentiment on the greenback has turned sour. Having dipped by 0.08% in the pre-market, the index is trading at 102.03 within the intraday corridor between 101.50 and 102.30. The greenback remains under selling pressure as traders are looking forward to the Fed's policy meeting. Investors are betting on the modest rate hike next week, even though the central bank is still committed to its fight against high inflation. The rate-setting committee is starting a two-day meeting on February 1. The Fed funds tool shows a 95% chance of the rate hike by 25 basis points at the nearest policy meeting. Fed official Christopher Waller said that pending rate hikes and a slide in inflation would make monetary policy rather restrictive. As a result, the US dollar index is not able to rebound from a 7-month low despite all its efforts. The US dollar is set to trade quietly until the release of the macroeconomic data. Big moves in the US dollar and the modest oil rally led the Canadian dollar to a range pattern. The USD CAD pair reversed upward and inched up by 0.07%. The instrument is now trading at about 1.3375 within the intraday corridor between 1.3290 and 1.3420. The loonie is kept by expectations ahead of the Bank of Canada's policy decision. The market is betting on a 25 basis points rate hike, anticipating a statement by Tiff McClellan. Meanwhile, the Canadian dollar depends on traditional driving forces, the greenback and the oil prices. Oil owes its rally to the optimism about reopening China's borders. Today, Brent crude slid 0.2% to trade at $88.03 a barrel, and WTI rose by 0.17%. Some energy traders are skeptical about how prompt China will revive its energy demand this quarter. Besides, oil prices have been wound down by comments that OPEC will stick to its oil output quotas. The crypto market is overwhelmed by pessimism, and Bitcoin fell to settle above 23,000 despite a fresh impetus it gained on a Monday. Today, the token is trading in the red, having slipped by 0.6%. It approached the level of $22,800. Altcoins are also marked by the doom and gloom, trading lower. The exception is the native coin by Binance. The crypto surged by 2.6% despite the news that crypto giant Binance proceeded almost $346 million in Bitcoin for the Zlato digital currency exchange, whose founder was arrested by US authorities last week for allegedly running a money laundering engine. The Justice Department said it charged Zlato's co-founder and majority shareholder Anatoly Lekhodimov with operating an unlicensed money exchange business that fueled a high-tech axis of a crypto crime by processing $700 million in illicit funds. So market sentiment is gloomy, but it could brighten up instantly amid good corporate reports by high-tech giants. Bitcoin's intraday corridor is in between $22,500 and $23,500. Keep close tabs on financial markets on InstaForex TV channel. And see you tomorrow!